From new technologies to great discoveries, today we leave for a trip to the future. This journey is the opportunity for us to find out what innovations are being or about to be made by men and women who decide to move forward. With a common desire to revolutionize our societies, they all work on innovations that will have real consequences on our daily lives. Thanks to their ideas and determination, our future looks brighter, smarter, and more sustainable. They are the shapers of tomorrow. A country's heritage is a reflection of its history and its common legacy. It is our duty to preserve these priceless works of art and witness accounts of past civilizations. Scanners, virtual reality, ultra-strong rays, new technologies are now a crucial tool for preserving and examining these cultural treasures from the past. How will these innovations revolutionize archaeological research and the investigation techniques? In the future, will these inventions help us to find out more about our history? Dr. Vito Mocella's work makes it possible to decipher ancient papyrus scrolls using cutting-edge lighting technology. Meanwhile, Ben Casira has started digitalizing our heritage to help make it last forever. And Florian Corseul is making incredible journeys accessible through virtual reality. Not forgetting Joris Dijk, who's undertaking the challenge of reproducing the greatest masterpieces using 3D printers. These people are combining their ingenuity and perseverance to preserve our heritage and make sure it's never forgotten. They are the shapers of tomorrow. Archaeological digs make it possible to discover precious remains, which constantly help us learn about bygone ways of life. But we sometimes still need help in deciphering these findings. Researchers are particularly interested in the contents of certain papyrus texts. These ancient books are a unique legacy of our civilization. They may contain lost texts from one of the greatest Greek philosophers, Papyrus. For 2 centuries, scientists have been trying to access the contents of this papyrus paper, which have turned black like coal and are barely legible. At the present time, a team of researchers may yet be able to start all over again. 3 scientists, French and Italian, have united their various expertise in order to try and solve the mystery of these papyrus texts without damaging them by using an unusual tool, a synchrotron. It all started in Italy, in the Bay of Naples, at the foot of a local volcano, Vesuvius. Under the Roman Empire, in the year 79 AD, a terrible eruption devastated the region of Pompeii and ravaged this little neighboring city, Herculaneum. Today, walking around these streets and houses of this World Heritage Site is like diving back into daily life in the 1st century, well before our time. Our guide knows the area inside out, as well as the city's history. Daniel Delatre is a world-renowned papyrologist. In other words, he specializes in deciphering ancient documents. Herculaneum is the source of his scientific quest, which he started over 30 years ago.
The eruption was extremely brutal. People weren't able to prepare for anything. There were a few seismic tremors in the days that led up to it, but to think that there would eventually be an eruption is quite something else. And life literally stopped within a matter of minutes.
Everyday life was frozen in motion by the flow of burning mud. Sheltered from air and moisture, the remains have been perfectly preserved for centuries in the form of buildings and skeletons of the local population. In the 18th century, in a small room in the most beautiful villa, the so-called Papyrus Villa, archaeologists discovered hundreds of papyrus scrolls, arranged as if in a library, and these papyrus papers may contain previously unseen texts written by Papyrus.
It's the only library discovered in the actual location it was put together. This library is an absolute treasure because the texts inside it are in the form of papyrus scrolls. There are texts by Epicurus that we haven't seen before, and they weren't made using Middle Age methods. So everything we obtain from these carbonized scrolls provides us with new sections of knowledge.
The papyrus scrolls have been preserved until now, but they are in very poor condition. The problem is finding a way to read their contents, a mystery which Daniel Delattre has been trying to solve for more than 30 years. To get a closer look at these remains, we must get back to the hustle and bustle of Naples city center. The former royal palace is now home to millions of books from the National Victor Emmanuel III Library. Herculaneum's papyrus scrolls are carefully preserved at the end of a maze of corridors, and here's what's left of them. They look like the charcoal you'd use for a barbecue. Originally, however, they were 10-centimeter long cylinders, and papyrus scrolls could be as long as 12 to 15 meters.
These scrolls, as you can see here, are obviously in a very sad state. They were dried out by the eruption of Vesuvius and thus shriveled up, became deformed, piled up on top of each other and crushed.
In the 19th and 20th centuries, scientists tried to open and unroll them mechanically, but in doing so, they also destroyed most of the original copies. This is one of the rare specimens that survived their attempts at reading the scrolls. It is still illegible to the naked eye.
You can immediately imagine the extreme difficulty they had in trying to decipher black ink on a blackened background, whereas the original would have had a very light ivory-colored background, with black ink on top, providing optimal contrast.
To date, Daniel Delattre is the latest papyrologist to have recreated and interpreted an already unrolled papyrus scroll, a text about music written by Philodemus. For 23 years, he pieced together several fragments and used infrared light to distinguish the Greek letters with greater contrast. This technique can be used on open scrolls. Nowadays, opening papyrus scrolls is completely forbidden. So how can we find out what's inside the hundreds of specimens that are yet to be studied? When he retired in 2013, Daniel Delattre never thought he'd find out how the story ends. However, a few months later, an Italian scientist contacted him with a brilliant idea. This Italian is Vito Mocella. He is not a papyrologist. He is a physician who specializes in optics. This purebred Neapolitan has been familiar with papyrus scrolls since he was a child and never understood why techniques for opening them hadn't evolved.
What surprised me was that the only approaches being used were the same ones that had been used 200 years ago. It seemed quite odd that nobody had found a better way.
According to him, it should be possible to read the carbonized scrolls without opening them by using X-rays. Currently used for medical imaging, these rays can pass through skin. They are partly absorbed by bones, which is what makes the contours of a skeleton show up on an X-ray scan. But these classic X-rays are not powerful enough to reveal the details inside a papyrus scroll. For better precision, Vito Mocella came up with the idea of using a very particular type of X-ray, which is 1,000 times more intense than those used in hospitals. And he knows one of the rare locations in the world that is able to produce such radiation. These super powerful X-rays are produced in France, in the middle of the mountains in Grenoble. More precisely, in an unusual place with a strange name, the European Synchrotron. It's this huge ring with a circumference of 844 meters. It's here that Vito Mocella contacted Emmanuel Brun. This young mathematician had never heard of Herculaneum's papyrus scrolls before. He has developed a much more powerful radiation technique than our existing MRI machines and scanners.
With an MRI, it is difficult to distinguish bone and see inside the bone, unlike what we can easily do here at the synchrotron.
For better precision, Emmanuel Brun uses the super X-rays generated by the synchrotron, which is a particle accelerator.
The idea behind the synchrotron is that we send electrons around a ring at the speed of light. And these electrons then create light, which is called synchrotron light, and essentially sits within the X-ray range.
As you can see on this model, the electrons are sped up by powerful magnetic fields, and then, within the synchrotron's ring, reach a speed of almost 300,000 kilometers per second, or the speed of light. The electrons then produce a super powerful radiation that feeds into the 42 little laboratories built around the ring. These are called beamlines. Explanation? When these electrons reach a beamline, they are slowed down by magnets. When they slow down, they emit very intense X-ray radiation, which is focused like a laser. This radiation is called synchrotron radiation and is capable of passing through most materials, alive or dead. And scientists use it to better understand the inside of materials with unrivaled clarity. We've come to one of the laboratories in the synchrotron, where one of the precious papyrus scrolls has arrived from Naples. Today's sample is particularly fragile. We therefore cannot handle this priceless piece of history. So in order to help us understand the experiment, our specialists Daniel Delattre, Emmanuel Braun, and Vito Mocella have reconstructed it using a 3D model of a papyrus scroll.
The X-rays come in through here. They pass through the sample. Some of them are absorbed, some are deflected, and they're recorded by the camera.
In a laboratory, everything is ready. Emmanuel can start the experiment. The papyrus is bombarded by a perfectly controlled beam of X-rays. As it passes through the scroll, the beams of rays is deflected, especially when it encounters tiny raised areas caused by the traces of ink. These deviations, merely 1/1000th of a degree, are recorded and analyzed by a computer, which then reveal the letters with greater contrast. For 3 days, the researchers will take more than 3,000 scans, a few microns apart, in order to recreate the papyrus scroll as precisely as possible in 3D.
We have to adjust the parameters, the wavelengths, the acquisition time, the sensor we're using, and that sort of thing, in order to get the best possible image.
After a few hours, the inside of the papyrus is finally revealed. From the results of the final experiment, you can clearly see the different layers of the scroll rolled around each other. But in order to interpret these images, we'll need an expert eye. That's the challenge for the papyrologist. Daniel Delattre talks to another specialist, an Italian called Gianluca Del Mastro. They both search for traces of ink and shapes that could be Greek letters.
Each time we collect as much as a letter, it gives us new hope for future developments.
Their interpretation task has only just begun, and recreating the text will take the papyrologists a long time. Since 2013, our lovely team of researchers has carried out several papyrus reading sessions using the synchrotron's super X-rays. The very first conclusive results have now begun to be published. With this technology, researchers are able to recreate a papyrus in 3D, then enter inside it, separate it into sections, and eventually isolate each individual sheet in order to spot traces of ink and distinguish ancient Greek letters like epsilon, pi, chi, for example. On a tiny fragment of papyrus, these experts have actually been able to make out almost the entire Greek alphabet and piece together some of the words. It's a huge feat, one that was scarcely imaginable until a short time ago.
It's an extremely long process for a very simple reason, because the system isn't automized.
In order to speed up the interpretation process, very advanced image processing software and huge computers will need to assist the papyrologists. That's the next step.
We're pushing the machines and techniques further and further. So light will be increasingly able to reveal things that couldn't be shown until now.
Despite the fact that this papyrus is 2,000 years old, and despite the fact that it's been carbonized, and we've basically been left with a piece of charcoal, being able to extract information from this lump of coal really is quite amazing.
It's a story that began 2,000 years ago, and after a tragedy, which is slowly but surely revealing its secrets, ancient papyrus scrolls have now entered the digital age. Digitalization is now becoming an essential solution for virtually immortalizing works of art. Given the threats to humanity and the climate, we must anticipate change by safeguarding cultural heritage in case it gets destroyed. This provides a guarantee of eternal conservation. The giant Moai statues on Easter Island, the Taj Mahal in India, or even the sunken city of Pompeii, all these treasures are UNESCO World Heritage Sites, as are almost 1,000 others. They tell a story of past civilizations. Today, this heritage is under threat, but it is now possible, thanks to digitalization, to safeguard these works of art in case they disappear. How does this new technology work, and what new perspectives can it offer? We're heading to the United States to find out. The major advancements in digitalization are owed to Ben Kaysira. In the 1990s, this engineer invented a portable laser that was used in construction for digitalizing buildings and producing models in 3D images. A shocking event rocked his world: the Taliban's destruction of the Buddhas of Bamiyan in Afghanistan. That was in 2001.
These were incredible monuments, 160, 180 feet tall. And in an instant, they were gone. They were gone. And unfortunately, there was no detailed information.
That's the moment the CyArk Foundation was born. Ben Kaysira decided to digitalize hundreds of monuments around the world in order to preserve a trace of these masterpieces, some of which were particularly threatened.
The main threats are really two types of threats. One is natural disasters such as earthquakes. The other is human-caused wars, purposeful damage, as in the Afghanistan Buddhas. This destruction is happening at an accelerated rate.
One of the monuments being digitalized is the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, which dates back to 1922.
It collects everything from almost straight down to straight above, but it will rotate and collect the full 360 degrees.
The laser emits a beam, which hits the monument being digitalized. The beam is sent back, and based on how long that takes, we can calculate the distance of each point on the monument in relation to the scanner. The laser collects thousands of points per second with a 2mm precision. These clusters of dots then appear and reproduce the monument in 3D.
Is almost 180 degrees, and the scanner...
Scott Lee, the director of operations at CyArk, has come to visit the worksite.
We like using laser scanning technology because it's a non-tactile method of documentation. We don't have to touch it, we don't have to get out and measure and risk damaging any of the surfaces. The machine captures it with ice-safe light, so it does no damage to the structure.
In total, for this monument alone, the scanner will generate 12 billion points. The images will then be rearranged by the computer and archived.
CyArk stands for Cyber Archive, so what we do is archive the data. We have a very secure system and 2 petabyte system to store all of our data of all of the sites. To date, we've captured about 120 sites around the world, and we store that in Pennsylvania in a mine about 200 feet below the ground.
120 sites have already been digitalized across the continents. They are chosen based on their historical significance and the risks they're facing. Ben Kasera watches over this treasure. The treasure that has already proven its worth in Uganda. This country is home to the Kasubi tombs, which date back to the 19th century. It is the resting place of 4 kings of the Kingdom of Uganda. It is an important spiritual location.
We had the opportunity 2 or 3 years ago to go there and to scan them and digitally preserve them. A year after that, we heard very sad news. The Kasubi tombs had been destroyed by fire. A couple of days after we heard the news, we got a phone call. And the person at the other end said, "Do you still have the data?" And of course we said, "Yes, it is in the archive." And they said, "Can we use it for reconstruction?"
Obviously, these tombs could even be rebuilt based on CyArk's drawings. Thanks to digitalization, many works of art have been saved virtually. But this technology can also help restore works of art. And which location could be more symbolic than the Louvre? This global temple of heritage has started a €4 million restoration of an emblematic sculpture, the famous victory of Samothrace. This treasured piece of heritage is one of the most famous statues in the world. It represents the goddess of victory, standing on the bow of a ship. Ludovic Lugier is the curator in charge of its restoration.
So this statue is the victory of Samothrace. It was discovered in Samothrace, which is a beautiful little island in the north of the Aegean Sea, which not many people know about, but it's really worth seeing. And on this island there's a sanctuary, which is the sanctuary of the great gods. And that's where Victory was placed. She was donated to commemorate a naval victory, probably in the 3rd or 2nd century before Christ. In the 19th century, she was, as was customary at the time, heavily revamped. By that I mean they hid the joints between the different sections. Back then they painted over it and revamped it and touched it up. Nowadays, we don't do that anymore, and these watercolor paints turn yellow over time. So the statue turned yellow, even more so, and the ship turned dark gray, almost black in certain places.
The statue's plinth, in the shape of a ship, was incomplete. Several fragments stayed in Greece, but they needed to reproduce the puzzle, so the curators decided to visit the site in Samothrace, where they digitalized these missing fragments, which couldn't be removed from the area.
In Samothrace, we thought, look, out of the first 20 fragments we studied, one of them could go here, another one could go on the ship, and obviously this helped us confirm our theories. And when you have a copy, and you already have a firm belief that you can replace the fragment and say, yeah, that works, that's when digitalization enables you to be sure, and it's a wonderful moment.
The fragments that were digitalized in Greece were first printed in France in 3D with resin, and then molded into plaster, because they will last longer that way. Daniele Bled and his team of restorers have replaced dozens of fragments.
I have a copy in plaster, which I can place here instead of this one, which will sit just there. I have to adjust it a little, but it will sit in there. And then we'll add a filler to fill the cavities we have around it.
The restoration has finished. After each fragment has been digitalized, the statue is digitalized in its entirety. Didier App's team will take care of this. The technique is the same one CyArk uses on monuments.
Here you have a laser scanner arm, which enables you to digitalize the surface of the Victory ship in real time. We generate around 46,000 points per second, which then enables us to recreate in a very real way the entire Victory of Samothrace and her ship. The red bar you see is a diode laser, which tells us whether or not the laser is actually hitting the surface of the Victory of Samothrace.
Digitalization makes it possible to develop educational applications for the public. It will, for example, be possible to virtually recreate the statue's puzzle. After months of work, the restoration is finally complete, which is a huge event for the life of the museum. Archiving monuments, making knowledge accessible, restoring sculptures. Digitalization is constantly helping our heritage, our scientists, and the general public. Other fields of research are also benefiting from technological advances and are allowing us to constantly learn more about our heritage. With the arrival of 3D immersion, archaeological digs are gaining fresh impetus. To you, archaeology may mean dusty digs, dainty brushes, and ancient pots in glass cabinets. Well, forget all that and tell yourself that the ideas need dusting off. Because, as you'll see, people are innovating in archaeology too. Welcome to Rennes, the capital of Brittany, home to the biggest immersive virtual reality room in the world. Here, you can walk around a stone monument dating back to the Neolithic period, or a Roman temple, as if you were really there. Thanks to virtual reality, archaeologists can now visualize full-scale versions of the sites they're working on. It's a tool that provides them with new research tools that enable them to check architectural theories. For example, are the shapes or color of a monument really plausible? 3D immersion is a great way of exploring the past and our heritage in order to better understand our history. Brittany is teeming with archaeological treasures, Neolithic dolmens, and Celtic legends. We're heading to one of the first sites that was digitalized, lost on a little island in the Finestre region, Île Carn. He could have been a sailor, but Florian Cousseau is a young archaeologist. And he's the one working on this little island of pebbles, which isn't easy to access. But the journey is worth the detour. It was here in 1954 that one of the oldest examples of human construction was discovered, a cairn.
Cairns were actually the first architectural structures in the world. They date to around 4,500 BC, which was 2,000 years before the pyramids. They are constructions that were made by Neolithic populations. They are buildings used to place dead people inside.
Restored after its discovery, it is now hard to distinguish what was actually originally there.
The only original part is here, and all the rest of the facade is from restoration work done in the 1960s. None of the Neolithic people saw it like this.
The only part that has remained intact is inside the cairn, and it's a real archaeological treasure. You just need to crawl inside.
You need good knees and health to get into this room.
This vault is one of the oldest in humanity. Unfortunately, it's under threat.
This vault could collapse any day. Hopefully no one walks on top of it. This part is already cracked, this whole section. This one could fall very quickly.
Its limited access and threatened structure are the reasons why he has decided to have it safeguarded in 3D. If you liked the natural cairn, you'll love the virtual one, in slippers. Keep your eyes peeled. We're here with Florian, our archaeologist, in the Immersia virtual reality platform, where the cairn has been carefully identically reproduced. It's a comfort and a real revolution for the work of researchers. Florian can view the cairn in 3D as if he were actually there, and can even move around inside it. Because here everything interacts, the infrared cameras, which are connected to sensors in the form of antennae, are placed on 3D glasses to detect the user's movements. The images are constantly recalculated according to his field of vision and position. Florian may use the controller to interact and to turn his torch on, for example.
You can slip inside, and it's almost nicer, really, because you really feel like you're inside it without feeling short of breath. I think you almost get more out of it in virtual reality, and it's true that each time I still find it quite exciting to go back in.
Installed on the Beaulieu campus in Rennes, This virtual reality platform is the only one in the world of its size. What's special about this device are the glass screens, which are almost 10 meters tall, custom built and fed by an overhead projector. Why glass? Because nothing should disturb the immersion experience, and glass provides a stable medium. It's an exceptional work tool for archaeologists and enables them to make surprising discoveries. In the actual cairn, the color of the stones is no longer visible, but in the virtual cairn, they look very different. Thanks to a geological study, the vault Florian admires today is the same as it would have been 4,500 BC. Following on a study of stones, researchers have been able to establish their characteristics and their original color. This information has been integrated into the 3D representation of the vault, and Florian Cousseau has now noticed the existence of mysterious signs.
I had some questions about the red stones that we can see. Were they placed in very specific places in order to convey a message?
As he deepens his virtual exploration, which has been scientifically validated, the evidence jumps out at him. The color of the stones goes from dark at the bottom of the room to lighter near the top. That surely must mean something.
It may indicate the transportation of the souls of the dead people they left here. And you might say they went from a rather dark dead world towards the sky, towards things that bring you back to life.
A gradient of color to symbolize the lifting of the soul. An attractive theory that would be impossible to confirm. And there's no danger of Florian finding the answers on paper, because the Neolithic people didn't know about writing. Let's hope that virtual reality may, through new discoveries, help him find the answers. The man who made it possible to combine virtual reality and archaeology is Jean-Baptiste Barreau, a 32-year-old engineer. He's the one who created the West Digital Heritage Conservatory in 2013.
I really have a deep love of images in general. That's clear, whatever it may be. My aim is to integrate the digital world as a method, a secondary science, as an aid to archaeology.
Since he was a teenager, Jean-Baptiste has been passionate about history and archaeology, as well as video games. It was actually in that sector that he started his career in IT. And since he's been suffering from spinal muscular atrophy, a general weakness of the muscles, virtual reality provides him with a mobility he could never have dreamed of.
With regard to my sensitivity and my situation as a handicapped person, there's this connection to access, which is a real driving force for me and for others. By which I mean being able to reproduce things that are difficult to get to in certain spaces or are inaccessible because they're from the past and we don't have a time machine. It's really great.
So how do you go about digitalizing a cairn? First, you need to take surveys. We head back to the Île Carn with a 3D engineer and his assistant, Laurent, who are taking new surveys with their scanner. But how does this device work? This device, which is called a 3D laser, actually does two things. First, it does a sweeping scan. The laser beam measures the distance to the object and determines its coordinates within space. This is what generates a cluster comprised of millions of dots. Second, the device takes photos, which make it possible to color in the dots of the cluster, and therefore obtain a digitalization in color. But before firing up the laser, they must define its positions, or points of view.
We want to avoid areas of shade. We want to be able to see the entirety of the object we're looking at. In order to do that, we multiply the number of positions depending on any obstacles or trees or objects that prevent us from getting all the way around the object.
For the cairn, they've had to use a dozen or so positions. After they've taken the field survey, Jan goes back to Jean-Baptiste at the conservatory. Here, the clusters of dots from the surveys will now be used to form 3D images.
Once we have loads of dots, we join them all up and make polygons or triangles with them. In fact, the computer works harder than us humans, even though we have to set all the configurations, etc. Then we integrate it into the Immersive platform, and that requires a whole team of computer programmers to be converted and adapted to this medium, which is very specific.
With virtual reality, you can model anything that exists, like the cairn. However, what's even better is that you can also recreate things that have disappeared. As we know from Asterix, the Romans came to Brittany too. Here in Corseul, in the Côte d'Armor department of Brittany, they've built the Temple of Mars, a building built by the Romans in the 1st century AD. Gaëtan Leclerc is an archaeologist who specializes in this period. He shows Jean-Baptiste the site.
What was this slightly rounded area here for?
It's a niche. There was probably a statue inside it.
The problem is, there's hardly anything left of the temple, so they're guessing its size since it spreads over more than a hectare.
When the sites have been completely leveled, it's very difficult to render them or guess their size. You can only imagine, you can't know for sure.
This is what the ruins look like today. And this is the result virtual reality produces. The Temple of Mars, as it no doubt would have looked 20 centuries ago. But Gaëtan Leclerc prefers to err on the side of caution, since the modeling of the site is only really based on theories.
With images like this, we can easily let ourselves get carried away with things that aren't at all scientific. It's still quite fascinating and exhilarating, so we'll be inclined to validate things that are actually only hypotheses. You have to keep a cool head, I mean.
And in order to keep a cool head, this archaeologist is working on this project in collaboration with a specialist architect. All their work is based on precise surveys taken around the excavations. Using 3D immersion, Gaëtan, who's been studying this building from drawings for years, can now physically experience the size of the temple.
When you find yourself in a level 1 immersion room at human height, you have to look up because the temple is very big.
It's a life-size experience that has enabled him to check a few architectural theories. He wasn't sure about the size of the columns in the gallery, which seemed oversized on the paper drawings.
Actually, when you're in the immersion room, you realize that it could indeed have worked that way, and that there was no major anomaly at level 1 life-size scale.
This technology will soon be available to everyone, for example in schools and museums. In the near future, much like the archaeologists, you could perhaps visit a cairn or wander around the corridors of a Roman temple. And in years to come, immersion could be even more astonishing. Researchers are trying to integrate interactions with touch and smell. Oh, lovely Neolithic aromas. Virtual reality is a godsend for researchers. It makes it possible to understand certain works of art, but its potential uses are much greater. Thanks to innovations, works of art from our history have some great times ahead. In the future, we may even be able to go further by reproducing certain creations with great precision using 3D printers. In the Netherlands, an incredible experiment is currently being carried out on paintings by the great masters such as Rembrandt and Van Gogh. In the Mauritshuis Museum in The Hague, Joris Dieck, a professor who specializes in art materials, and his team are scanning a self-portrait by Rembrandt. 2 cameras have been set up in front of this work of art, which dates back to 1669.
Here in the middle, we have a projector that projects different patterns on the surface of the painting. Then you can through triangulation, calculate the surface of a painting. So we're extracting topography and color of the painting from the same raw data.
Here, alongside classic digitalization, they're making a precise record of the colors, too. This is what will enable them to print Rembrandt's artwork in 3D. It's an idea that Joris and his colleagues came up with at Delft University. His student, Wilhelmine, is actually writing her thesis about it. She explains to us how this 3D printer works, although its mechanism is a closely guarded secret.
It is an inkjet printer, which is basically a polymer. So it prints all little droplets, and they become a solid when they are cured by UV light. And you just print a lot of different layers on top of each other, and that is how you create a height. So basically, it's a plastic that we make it look like a paint.
This cutting-edge printer makes it possible to print the self-portrait. And the result? A work of art that's difficult to distinguish from the original. Unless you're the museum's curator, of course.
I can see the difference. For me, the relief is not quite as sharp as the original. The gloss is a little too even, but these are kind of qualities of the paint surface that is probably not perceptible to the general public. I think it's very important that visitors still come to look at the original artwork in the museum. Of course, you can't get anywhere close to a real work of art. It's behind glass, you have to take distance, but with a 3D print, the public will be able to actually get up really close and to be able to touch it. People need to interact more with works of art.
And there are many uses for this type of 3D reproduction.
I can't ever imagine that there will be a print hanging next to the painting. Who knows, in the future there may be the situation where a painting is deemed too fragile to be exhibited, and then you can choose to have a 3D print on the wall.
It will also be possible to print a painting with its original colors.
Quite a few paintings that have discolored, that have undergone all kinds of chemical reactions, or where restorers in the past, in a way that we wouldn't do today, right? Paintings have faded. This digital technology and the 3D printing offers the possibility to sort of have a look at the original appearance of artwork.
So will we one day see 3D reproductions in museums?
I'd like to stay far away from the suggestion, that this is getting, is sort of replacing the original. It's just a natural development of reproduction technology that has been going on for hundreds of years. But what the eventual applications will be, where it's going to go, we really don't know. That's also part of the excitement.
What are the future uses for 3D printing? Ben Cassiera has a good idea of the answer, and he's thinking big, very big. He's convinced that one day you'll be able to print monuments in 3D, in life-size scale using digitalized data.
The detail that you see in here is incredible. 3D printing is going to be extremely important in the heritage field, especially to replicate. Technologists working on this are going to come up with methods that would replicate the material as well as the look and color and texture. When that happens, I think that'll be fantastic.
Who knows? Ben Cassiera could be right. One day, we will no doubt be able to print a monument in order to save it from being forgotten forever. There's no doubt about it. There are many possibilities when it comes to reproducing works of art. But can we go as far as imitating artists who marked history by not only reproducing their work, but their style too? Let's come back to Rembrandt's painting. After the 3D printing is finished, the scientists embark on a new step, which involves not just copying, but creating new paintings. Using artificial intelligence to make Rembrandt's work last longer is an ambitious project that has required 18 months of work from Emmanuel Flores, the project's technical director, and his team.
Our question was, how can we understand Rembrandt from a statistical and data perspective and reconstruct a masterpiece using that knowledge? It has a lot of different layers in the question itself, I think. like how do we replicate beauty and how do we measure beauty.
Because the computer programmers didn't choose Rembrandt by chance, the beauty of his paintings is based on a chiaroscuro technique, this clever contrast between the darkness of the backgrounds and the light on the faces, which brings such depth to his paintings. Therefore, to imitate the painter's unique style poses a real technological challenge. In order to define the characteristics, more than 300 of Rembrandt's portraits painted between 1622 and 1632 have been studied with a fine-tooth comb and scanned in high definition, so as to avoid missing the slightest detail.
Do you know what I need actually?
They only have design.
Samples of the parts. I don't even need the whole paint.
Because the first step involves defining the subject of the painting, the analysis of all of these portraits has made it possible to draw up a composite sketch of an imaginary person that Rembrandt could have actually painted.
We analyze gender, age, and head direction. And we came with some statistical numbers, and we came to the conclusion it should be a male, 30 to 40, white ethnicity, looking to the right.
Once they've identified the subject, they still need to paint him the way Rembrandt would. How does it work? By using an impressive algorithm.
We use an algorithm that can detect over 60 points in a painting, and we use those points to estimate the head position. And based on the head position, we were able to align the faces to face the camera. After all the faces were nicely aligned, we were able to estimate the distance between the eyes, the nose, and the mouth and the ears.
Once they've done that, the computer programmers compare the portraits by layering them on top of each other, which enables them to create a model for the eyes, nose, mouth, and ears, the way Rembrandt painted them. Using the coding of this precious information, the computer begins a long calculation that takes over 500 hours before eventually delivering a digital work of art in very high definition. The result is rather convincing, at least according to Rembrandt experts.
Well, he has personality, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have it here 1 second.
I would take away this pattern bit a little bit.
That's too detailed.
But a Rembrandt painting is much more than a 2D photograph. It's also a material and particular texture. So it's time to move on to 3D. In order to recreate the texture, the algorithm has also identified the different layers of paint layered on top of each other, which represent the artist's touch, in much the same way that a topographical map reveals the profile of a landscape. This modeling is then printed in 3D on 13 layers, and the ink used, formed of polymers, the drops of which solidify when exposed to UV rays, produce a result that bears an astonishingly close resemblance to the oil paint used by Rembrandt himself. So this is where technological achievements are at, being able to almost perfectly imitate a painting's finish using a different material. The result is striking. For computer programmers, the gamble has paid off. But what do the restoration experts think? We've come for an expert opinion. Anne Sillinger has been restoring works of art since she was 19. She works not only for museums, but for collectors too. She and her team are taking a look at this new Rembrandt.
With that background and that framing and the light shining down, yes.
It's a Rembrandt. It's a Rembrandt. Exactly. But
yes, it's very beautiful. I think it's quite incredible that a modern technique can be used to render the poetry of an artist, because it has indeed rendered the artist's poetry. Even though we in our profession use slightly different material, Rembrandt's poetry is still there.
But you don't have the slightly yellowed varnish marks, the natural aging of the painting.
And yet I think it's really beautiful.
It's a computing accomplishment that's a far cry from the work done by these restorers who cannot simply invent the missing part of a damaged painting, and their treatment must always be reversible. As for art forgers, Anne Sillinger believes that they're even better than artificial intelligence.
I think that forgers have less to worry about than copyists because forgers are really focused on perfection. There are also genius forgers who are actually valuable because they become so well known for their talent that they'll actually recreate everything, even the canvas from that time period which they found on other paintings with the same wear, the same insect infestations, if necessary, the same discoloring of the varnish. They'll go so far that this algorithm is still no match for a great forger.
The new Rembrandt, a unique painting in the world of art history and technologies, which almost turns computers into artists themselves. In the digital age, and thanks to the progress made by researchers, our heritage is gradually being immortalized and accessible to everyone, all over the world. New technology is definitely here to help our precious cultural treasures. It's thanks to the relentless work done by these men and women, real-life invention superheroes, that we are able to reinvent our world and create a better future. They are the shapers of tomorrow.